Arrival from the stars. It began on a quiet Tuesday. People were going to work, eating breakfast, checking their phones. Then the sky changed. A bright white appeared above Earth, floating like a frozen star. It didn't move fast. It didn't make a sound. But every satellite in orbit stopped working for a few seconds. Military radars picked it up at the same time. The object wasn't a missile, not a meteor, not a drone. It was a ship. And it wasn't human-made. The world held its breath. Every news channel played the same footage, a silver, smooth ship, shaped like a drop of water, just hanging there above Earth. Governments sent messages, asking who it was, what it wanted. No reply. Then without warning, it started moving. It came lower, slowly, gently. Like it had all the time in the world, it hovered above the United Nations building, New York, and then a voice spoke, not on speakers, not through radio, but inside everyone's minds. "I come in peace," the voice said, calm and female. "Do not fear me." Moments later, a door opened in the sky. She stepped out, tall, glowing, almost like a star shaped into a woman. Her skin was silver blue, her eyes like shining crystals. She didn't walk, she floated, slowly landing on the ground in front of cameras, soldiers, and stunned world leaders. They expected her to say something wise, something deep, something peaceful. Instead, she laughed, a long, loud laugh, like she found the whole planet funny. "Is this it?" she said, spinning slowly in the air. "This is what you call gravity?" She rose again, flying 10 feet above the ground with ease, her arms open wide. "Your planet is a baby's crib." She smiled. "Your weapons are toys, your minds are slow, and your bodies are weak." People didn't know how to respond. Some felt fear, some felt anger, some were simply amazed. Her name, she said, was Veltrana. She came from a system beyond the Orion Arm, from a place where stars were born fast and planets moved like smoke. Her people were explorers, scientists, and observers. They had been watching Earth for many years, waiting for the right time to arrive. And now, she claimed, the time had come. A meeting was arranged quickly between world leaders and Veltrana. It was the biggest event in human history. Everyone expected a peaceful exchange of knowledge, maybe even a chance for humanity to join a galactic alliance. But Veltrana had no intention of joining anything. She came to test, to judge, and already, in her eyes, Earth was failing. She floated through cities like a queen walking through a village. She mocked gravity, technology, even human emotions. "Your gravity," she told a group of scientists, "is so weak I barely feel it." She showed them her body was made for deep space, for movement without resistance. Her muscles, her bones, her blood, all adapted to a life Earth could never understand. But not everyone was impressed. An old scientist, Dr. Elric, sat quietly in the back of the hall, watching her every move. He didn't clap, didn't smile, didn't speak. When asked later why, he said, "She's not flying, she's compensating." Had seen something the others missed, a small twitch in her leg when she landed, a flicker in her eye when she stood still for too long, and something else, a mark, deep red, near her neck, visible only for a second before she covered it. It looked like a bruise. Later that night, as the world celebrated and debated, Elric met with his assistant in a dark lab. "Start running tests on the energy fields," he said, "and keep an eye on her structure." "Why?" the assistant asked, confused. Elric turned slowly. "Because she's not as strong as she thinks. Earth has a way of humbling those who laugh at it." Far above them, in her ship, Veltrana stared at her reflection. She touched the red mark on her neck, pressing it gently. Pain. For the first time in years, she felt it. She looked down at Earth with narrowed eyes. "This planet," she whispered to herself, "is wrong." But it was too late to leave now, because Earth was already pulling her in, and gravity doesn't care how strong you think you are. It just waits, and pulls, and wins. Asterisk the challenge. The world didn't sleep that night. News channels replayed Veltrana's arrival again and again. Some called her a goddess. Some called her a threat. Everyone agreed on one thing: she was not like US, but beneath the surface, something had changed. Not on Earth, but inside Veltrana. She stared at her reflection in the ship's mirror again, touching the red mark hidden near her collar. The bruise had spread slightly. Her fingers trembled for a moment, then stopped. She whispered to herself, "It's only temporary." But doubt had entered her voice. Back on Earth, world leaders prepared for a second meeting. They wanted answers about her people, her ship, her purpose. Veltrana didn't speak right away. Instead, she landed in the middle of Central Park in front of thousands of people and gave a challenge. "I will not answer questions," she said. Floating above a stone platform, "I will test you." Her voice echoed through every phone, screen, and speaker in the area. "If humanity passes, we may talk of peace," she continued. "If you fail, I will decide what must be done with this world." People looked at each other in shock. Was this a game, a warning, or something else? Then, with a wave of her hand, she pointed to a nearby statue of iron and concrete, a monument to explorers of the past. She smiled. "This structure weighs more than 100 men." She lifted it with one hand like it was paper and flung it into the sky, where it disappeared beyond the clouds. Gasps and cheers followed next. She turned to a group of soldiers watching nearby. "Shoot me," she said. Standing still, arms wide. They hesitated, but orders came fast. 3 bullets were fired. All stopped inches from her skin and melted midair. She walked forward, letting the molten metal fall to her feet like sand. "Now, show me what you can do," she said to the world. The next day, the United Nations called a meeting of the top scientific minds on Earth. They were told to prepare a demonstration of humanity's best knowledge, strength, and spirit, but among them sat one man who didn't speak much. Dr. Elric. He watched recordings of Veltrana over and over again, frame by frame. He saw the moment her leg buckled slightly as she landed. He saw her eyes blink longer than normal during flight. And he saw the slight delay in her voice when she spoke directly to the crowds. "She's struggling," he whispered. "Not much, but enough." His assistant looked confused. "But she lifted a monument like nothing," Elric replied calmly. "Strength is easy to fake, pain is not." Meanwhile, Veltrana continued her tour of Earth. She visited deserts, jungles, oceans, and Arctic lands, all without transport. She floated, hovered, and soared like a spirit from mythology. But each time she landed, she stayed on the ground a little longer. And each time she asked questions. How long can a human live underwater? What is your deepest point on this planet? What force holds your planet together? It wasn't curiosity, it was caution. Her own body was starting to feel the pressure. The humans didn't know it yet, but Veltrana's kind had lived in near-zero gravity for thousands of years. Their bones were light, their muscles long and flexible. They were not made for weight, for pull, for resistance. And Earth had all three. Dr. Elric and his team began designing a counter-challenge. Not with weapons, not with power, but with patience. They created a test chamber, a room with adjustable gravity levels, masked as an honor room to showcase Earth's respect. They planned to invite Veltrana into it during a live broadcast. If she was truly as strong as she claimed, she would be fine. If not, she would collapse in front of the world. But time was running short. Because Veltrana had made an announcement. "In 3 days," she said, "I will declare my judgment of Earth." Elric looked up at the screen, then at his team. "She's giving us a countdown," he said. "That means something inside her is running out," the assistant asked. "Do you think she's lying?" Elric shook his head. "No, she's dying that night." Veltrana stood alone at the edge of a volcano in Iceland. The air was thin, the wind sharp, the ground shaking slightly. She stared into the fire below, then took off her gloves. Her hands were trembling now. She whispered to the lava, "How does this world make everything feel so heavy?" Her ship waited behind her, but she didn't return. She knelt on the rock, holding her sides. Her skin pulsed slightly, shifting between silver and pale blue. For the first time, Veltrana felt small and Somewhere deep inside, fear whispered her name. Cracks in the sky from space, Earth looked calm. A soft blue ball wrapped in white clouds, spinning slowly in the dark. But Veltrana knew better now. This planet wasn't soft. It was heavy, hungry, and patient. She stood inside her ship, lights dim, walls pulsing with alien energy. She pressed her hand against the glass, feeling her fingers shake again. The bruise on her neck had spread to her shoulder. Every second spent outside made her slower, heavier. Her people would have called it madness to stay this long on a world like this, but pride had its own gravity, and it was pulling her down too, on Earth. The world was starting to change. Veltrana's arrival had caused a shift, not just in science or politics, but in people's minds. Some worshipped her, building fan pages, wearing her symbol, calling her the Sky Queen. Others feared her, warning that she was only the first wave, but most were simply confused. She came with no army, no weapons, no threats. Yet she acted like Earth already belonged to her. In her speeches, she called humans slow but creative, primitive but curious. It sounded like praise, but it wasn't. It was like a teacher talking to a pet. The problem was humans don't like being talked down to, especially not on their own planet. In the middle of this tension, something strange started happening in Earth's sky. Satellites began shutting down, not all at once. Just a few scattered across countries. Military communications dropped for minutes at a time. Weather systems misread entire storms, predicting rain where the sun was shining. The cause? Unknown. But one country traced the signal, and it pointed straight at Veltrana's ship. She denied it, of course. This planet's tools are fragile, she said. They collapse under their own errors. But Dr. Elric didn't buy that. He had been studying her ship's energy field, watching its pattern, and he noticed something disturbing. Every few hours, the ship sent out a small pulse, barely noticeable, but just enough to interfere with low Earth orbit. This isn't a visit, Elric said in a secure meeting. It's a soft invasion. Meanwhile, Veltrana's body was giving up slowly. She used her technology to hide it, injecting nanofluids into her veins, using internal stasis fields to support her spine. But the pain didn't stop anymore. Walking was hard, even floating took effort. The ground was pulling her apart, one cell at a time, but she refused to leave because leaving would mean she lost. And her people didn't lose one day, in front of thousands. Veltrana tried to lift a tank. She had done it before, made it look easy, even fun. But this time, something was off. She raised her hand. The tank shivered, but stayed in place. People began to murmur. Veltrana smiled, wide and fake, and tried again. This time, the tank rose, but only a foot above the ground before crashing back down. She stumbled slightly, hiding it as a laugh. It is heavier than expected, she said. You build your machines strong. Cameras caught everything, and someone, somewhere, slowed down the footage, zoomed in on her hand. It was shaking badly. The video went viral. Alien goddess or glitching robot? Is Earth too strong for her? Dr. Elric was right. Veltrana remained silent, but her ship's energy field grew tighter. It pulsed every hour now, affecting more systems, more satellites. Some feared she was preparing for war. Others believed she was trying to escape. But Elric, he saw something else. She's under pressure, he said. Not from us, but from the planet itself. She's built for drifting in space, not standing on ground. He showed evidence readings of her body mass shifting, her bones compressing unnaturally, her blood oxygen levels falling faster each day. Earth is crushing her, he whispered, and she's too proud to admit it. One night, while the world argued, Veltrana stood alone on a rooftop, watching the stars, her knees bent slightly, not out of grace, but from exhaustion. She looked up at her home star, faint in the distance. I didn't come here to lose, she whispered. But Earth said nothing. It only pulled her a little harder, and for the first time in her life, Veltrana felt small under the sky, not because the stars were far, but because this planet refused to bow, and neither would its people. The bluff Veltrana no longer smiled in public. She still floated above the crowds, still gave speeches with calm, glowing eyes. But something in her had changed. People could feel it. She didn't mock Earth's gravity anymore. She didn't lift heavy objects or race planes through the clouds. She spoke less, watched more. And behind that quiet stare was something cold: fear. Her ship, once peaceful and quiet, now hummed with tension. Energy pulses became stronger, wider. Earth's satellites were shutting down in patterns: weather systems in Africa, spy networks in Asia, civilian feeds in Europe. Governments started holding secret meetings, asking the same question: is she planning something? Or is she hiding something? Dr. Elric sat in one of those rooms, watching the data scroll across the screen. She's bluffing, he said calmly. Her strength is failing, someone asked. Then why escalate the interference? Elric tapped the screen, where Veltrana's power field glowed like a heartbeat. Because bluffing is her last weapon, he answered. She wants us afraid. But Earth was done being afraid. The leaked video of her failed tank lift had changed everything. People began asking harder questions. Why does she avoid long flights now? Why are her hands shaking in close-ups? Why does she never stand for too long? Memes flooded the internet, some funny, some brutal. They called her Queen Floater, the wobbly wonder, even gravity's girlfriend. Veltrana watched them in silence, alone inside her ship. Every name stung, but one cut deeper than the rest. Humanity, 1, alien, 0. So she made a move, one that would silence every laugh, every doubt. She called a global meeting and offered a gift. Her voice echoed across screens, calm and powerful again. I offer Earth something no other world has, she said. Protection. She extended a glowing orb in her hand, slowly rising into the air. This device will shield your planet from cosmic threats: asteroids, radiation, rogue AI. The world was stunned. Place it in your orbit, she continued, and I will connect it to my ship's field. All she asked in return: full access to Earth's defense networks, missile systems, satellite weapons, early warning radar. She called it a mutual gesture of peace. Elric called it what it was: a trap. Behind closed doors, Earth's leaders argued. The offer sounded too good. If she was truly weak, why offer a defense system? Why give Earth anything at all? Elric answered with 2 words: she's desperate. He explained the bluff: give a big gift, demand control, make the planet scared of saying no. But he wasn't interested in fear, he was interested in proof. So Elric launched a counterbluff. His team released a fake scientific paper online quietly, through obscure science journals. It claimed Earth had discovered a gravitational frequency weapon, capable of targeting alien biology. The paper was vague, filled with made-up tech terms, but it spread. Veltrana saw it. She didn't respond publicly. But her ship's energy field flared up that night, sharper than ever before. She even canceled a planned public appearance the next day, claiming sudden solar interference. Elric smiled when he heard that. She read it, he said, and she believed it. The next night, someone leaked footage of her injecting herself again. This time, in better quality, clearer view. She looked pale, tired, and her hands shook as she pressed the needle into her arm. The video exploded, even her followers began to doubt. If she was so powerful, why was she treating herself like a sick human? Inside her ship, Veltrana stared at the screens in silence. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears like thunder. She pressed her hands into the wall, whispering commands. The ship asked a question: retreat? She hesitated. If she left now, Earth would remember her as a liar, a failure. If she stayed, she might not survive the week, but pride held her still. She looked at Earth again, not as a child's world, not as a weak little rock, but as something worse, a clever enemy that knew how to fight without fighting. And still, they kept smiling at her, still clapping politely, still offering tea and soft chairs at meetings, all while building a trap around her inch by inch. She realized too late. This planet didn't need to shoot her. It only needed to wait. Back in the lab, Elric stared at the readings. Almost time, he whispered. They were ready. The peace room had been built. A space disguised as a tribute hall, fitted with an artificial gravity field. Soon she would step inside, and Earth would watch to see if the Sky Queen would stand or collapse. The room looked harmless. White walls, soft lighting, flowers in a vase. Veltrana floated above the floor as usual, her long silver robes brushing the air like smoke. They called it a cultural exchange ceremony, but it was a trap, and she felt it. She didn't know how, but something about the air pressed down on her skin, just a little harder than before. The room had been designed by Dr. Elric's team, gravity adjusted by hidden tech. Not enough to break her, just enough to test her. If she could walk through the room, her dignity would survive. If she stumbled, the world would see what Earth already knew. Outside, cameras rolled, crowds gathered, leaders smiled politely. Veltrana's followers held signs. Unity from the stars. She chose us. Sky Queen forever. They didn't know she could barely stand inside her ship. Veltrana had injected the final dose of the stabilizing fluid. Her hands were cold, her breath sharp. Her body was screaming now. Every step on Earth felt like a mountain pressing against her bones. But she walked anyway, because pride walks before collapse. The doors opened, and she entered the room. Slowly, gracefully, eyes steady, she floated across the first 5 meters with ease. But then her body dropped an inch lower. Nobody noticed, except Elric, watching from a control booth above. She's feeling it, he said quietly. Veltrana kept moving. Another few steps. The field increased by just 3%. Her breathing changed, just slightly. She felt her knees begin to tighten, but she forced a smile and nodded to the crowd. She tried to rise again, to float a little higher. Nothing happened. Her eyes flickered. She waved her arm gently, as if making a gesture of peace. But in truth, it was a test. Was her balance still working? Barely. Suddenly, her leg gave out. Not a fall, not yet, but a slip, a stumble, just enough to make the air in the room freeze. One camera zoomed in. One child in the crowd pointed. Is she okay? She caught herself quickly and stood tall again. But her hands were clenched now, hidden in her sleeves, shaking. Elric whispered to his assistant. Increase it again. Just 2% more. That was enough. Veltrana's knees buckled, and she dropped. Her body hit the floor with a hard thud. Robes tangled around her. Gasps filled the room. She tried to rise, her arms trembling under the weight, but her limbs betrayed her. The same body that flew through solar storms now couldn't lift itself from a quiet white room. Cameras didn't turn away. They zoomed in. Closer. The Sky Queen collapsed. Veltrana's breathing turned heavy, broken. Her face was pale, veins slightly glowing under the skin. She looked up and locked eyes with Elric behind the glass. He didn't smile. He didn't mock her. He simply nodded once. I told you, he whispered. This planet doesn't need war. Veltrana managed to speak, her voice faint. You tricked me, Elric replied, calmly. No, we endured you. Security rushed in, offering help, but she raised a hand weakly, refusing it. She pulled herself into a seated position with slow effort. I underestimated this world, she admitted. She looked around at the humans watching her, not laughing, not cheering, just watching. Silent, still, patient, like gravity itself. Outside, news broke instantly. Veltrana collapses in UN ceremony. Alien power fails under Earth's pull. She mocked gravity. Now she can't stand. Her followers fell silent. Her critics rose louder, but the most powerful sound was the one inside Veltrana's mind. Her own heartbeat, loud, shaking, slow. Later that night, Elric stood on the roof of the building, staring at the stars. He held a small note in his hand, words Veltrana had spoken before she left the room. This planet doesn't kneel. He read it again and smiled sadly. She finally saw it. In orbit, Veltrana's ship prepared for departure. Her body lay in a recovery pod, weak but alive. She wasn't leaving in victory, and she knew it. She came to judge a world, And it judged her back, not with weapons, not with fear, but with patience, with weight, with gravity. And Earth had won. Quietly, completely. The ship hovered like a wound in the sky. Dark, silent, waiting. Veltrana lay inside it, not floating this time, but resting in a chamber filled with soft blue light. Her body was healing, slowly, but the damage was deep. Not just her bones, her nerves, her strength, but something else, something harder to fix, her pride. She had come to Earth expecting applause, obedience, wonder. Instead, Earth gave her silence. It gave her time, gravity, and the unbearable truth. That strength isn't always loud, and that power doesn't always look like fire in the sky. Sometimes, power is the ability to wait, to stand when it hurts, to carry weight. Without collapsing, Veltrana asked for a final meeting before she left. Not in secret, not through screen, face to face. She requested Dr. Elric, the man who never feared her, who never raised his voice, the man who let gravity do the talking. He entered her ship alone, no guards, no weapons, just a small recorder in his coat pocket. The room was dim, filled with soft humming sounds and strange stars on the ceiling. Veltrana sat in a chair shaped like folded metal, her eyes dim, her voice calm. "You win," she said quietly. Elric shook his head. "It wasn't a contest." She smiled, tired but real. "It was for me," she replied. "I came to test this world, and it tested me instead." There was silence between them for a while. No speeches, no science. Just the quiet of two minds understanding something bigger than words. Finally, Veltrana spoke again. "I knelt on your soil," she said. "Not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't stand." Elric nodded slowly. "Earth does that." She looked at him, not with pride or shame, but with respect. "Your kind is odd," she said. "Weak and strong in ways I never studied. You live with constant pressure. And yet you build, climb, dream." She stood slowly, with effort, but stood. "This planet is not soft," she said. "It's not a child's world, and you are not a simple species." "I see that now." Elric took out the small recorder, placing it on the table between them. "Say it clearly," he said. "Not for me, but for the ones listening later." Veltrana looked at the device, then at him, and nodded. "I came to Earth thinking it would break under my presence," she said, voice steady. "But Earth broke me first. I am Veltrana of the Letherian Reach, and I recognize this species as not to be underestimated. They are not peaceful, nor violent. They are patient, and dangerous in ways we never understood." Outside, the world listened. The message was sent live, translated in real time. People stood still in streets, in schools, in stations, just listening. The alien who had once mocked them, now speaking with caution, with honesty. Veltrana turned toward Elric one last time. "There will be others," she said. "Not all will arrive with words, some will come with war." Elric didn't flinch. He simply said, "Then we'll stand. And if we fall," he added, "we'll get back up again." She nodded once, the same way he had nodded from behind the glass when she fell. Then she walked toward the ship's core chamber. Her ship began to hum louder, rising in the air. No flashy goodbye, no beam of light, just departure, just distance. Back on Earth, people weren't cheering, they weren't dancing, or celebrating a victory. They were thinking. Because this wasn't the end. It was the warning before the next chapter, the test before the real test. But now they knew something. Earth might not be the most advanced, or the fastest, or the strongest, but Earth was a place of pressure and people who lived under pressure, learned how to survive up in the stars. Veltrana opened a link to her home system. The first words she spoke weren't scientific, strategic, or proud. She simply said, "Do not send more. Earth is not what we thought." The message. Earth was quiet after she left. No explosions, no ruins, no victory parade, just silence. A silence that felt like the deep breath before something larger. Veltrana's ship faded into the clouds and disappeared into the stars. Her final message echoed across nations. played on screens, printed in headlines, whispered in late-night conversations. Do not send more. She had come as a superior, left as a student, and the world had changed. In labs, scientists worked in silence, reviewing what they had learned. Alien biology, energy signatures, gravity manipulation. The technology she brought wasn't shared, but her failure was studied frame by frame, not to mock her, to understand her, because if she came, others might too, and they wouldn't all be as careful or as proud. Dr. Elric stood on a hill outside the city, watching the stars. In his hand was a small device, Veltrana's message unit, left behind intentionally. Its surface glowed with symbols that changed slowly like waves. He activated it, and her voice returned one last time, soft, tired, honest. I once thought of Earth as small, her voice said. Now I know small things can carry the weight of stars. You are not prepared, not yet, but you are dangerous, in ways we do not fully understand. If you wish to survive, do not try to become us. Become more of yourselves. Elric saved the message, then looked at the sky again. Above him, a new satellite blinked into place, not from her ship, but from Earth's own launch hours earlier. A quiet reminder. Earth was watching now. Learning faster, building in silence. In schools, children played a game called Hold the Gravity. In the game, one player had to kneel slowly without falling. They called it the Veltrana test. What began as a joke had become something else. A story, a memory, a warning. Meanwhile, the stars remained unchanged. But far beyond the edge of Earth's solar system, something else was moving. A ship, bigger than Veltrana's, darker, older. Its surface wasn't smooth and elegant. It was scarred and armored. Its lights didn't glow, they burned. It wasn't here to observe. It was here to measure threat. And Earth had become visible. Back on Earth, leaders gathered in a hidden room deep beneath the ground. No reporters, no cameras, just voices and data. We've been marked, one said. Observed, another added. Challenged, Elric said. And now remembered. They had decoded the second half of Veltrana's final transmission. It was never meant for Earth. It was a warning to her kind. Humanity is not ready, but they are willing. They do not yield easily. Engagement is not advised, but warnings don't stop everyone. There are civilizations that don't test, they conquer. That don't question, they devour. And one of them had just received Veltrana's full report. In a quiet lab, a girl sat alone, watching recordings of Veltrana's collapse in the gravity chamber. She wasn't a soldier or a scientist. She was just a student, but her eyes were sharp and her mind was quick. She paused the video, zoomed in, wrote notes in the margins of her notebook. Above the page, she had written, "She fell, but not because we attacked. She fell because we waited." And maybe that's Earth's real strength. Not speed, not weapons, not flying cities, but this, endurance. The ability to carry weight, to kneel and rise, to lose and try again. So Earth sent a message back, not with fear, not with anger, but with clarity. It was short, sent from a single satellite deep into the void. And it read, "We remember, we learn, we stand," and somewhere in a distant part of the galaxy, a receiver blinked, a signal was read, and a much colder voice whispered, "Then we begin."